You don't need to change your life in a day, but you do need to change something daily. That's a principle many people overlook in their pursuit of success, happiness, or transformation. Most people are looking for that big breakthrough, the aha moment when everything shifts instantly. But life doesn't usually work like that. God doesn't always give you a miracle that changes everything overnight. More often, He gives you a process, and that process is where the real power lies. Improving by just 1% every single day might not seem like much in the moment, but over time it produces exponential results that transform your life completely. When you improve yourself just 1% daily, you are honoring the principle of stewardship. Myron Golden teaches that God doesn't bless laziness or inconsistency. He blesses stewardship. And stewardship is not about managing large blessings. It starts with what you have, where you are, and who you are. That 1% could be anything. Learning a new skill, making a healthier food choice, speaking a kind word, managing your money better, or simply choosing to pray instead of worry. Each of those actions may seem small, but in the kingdom, small seeds often grow into massive harvests. The truth is, transformation is not about doing more. It's about doing better and doing it consistently. It's not about working harder, but working smarter with intention and clarity. This is why Myron often talks about the difference between movement and progress. Just because you're busy doesn't mean you're growing. But when you improve yourself 1% each day, you're not just moving, you're moving forward. You're building a new foundation, one disciplined action at a time. And here's where it gets powerful. That 1% isn't just added, it's compounded. Over time, your 1% today multiplies with your 1% from yesterday, and your overall capacity begins to rise. This idea of compounding is something we understand in wealth building, but it applies to personal growth just as much. Myron Golden frequently references the concept of compound interest, how a small investment, when given time and consistency, grows into something massive. The same applies to your habits, your faith, your discipline, and your mindset. When you commit to just getting 1% better daily, your small steps turn into massive momentum. You go from struggling to keep up to leading from the front. Steve Smith. We have to understand how habits become lifetime commitments. You know, over the years, my vision has become much more complex. It has become much more complex. My Myron Golden, you become the kind of person who doesn't just change situations, you change standards. But it all begins with intentionality. You have to choose to grow. You have to wake up each day and decide that you're going to do something better than you did yesterday. That kind of mindset doesn't happen by accident. It's cultivated. And that's where identity begins to shift. Because every time you improve by 1%, you're not just changing your actions, you're upgrading your self-image. You stop seeing yourself as a victim of circumstances, and you begin to see yourself as a vessel of purpose. You move from frustration to focus, from chaos to clarity. Most people underestimate what they can do in a year because they overestimate what they can do in a day. They think if they don't have a massive breakthrough today, then it wasn't worth the effort. But the 1% rule teaches you to value process over perfection. God is far more interested in your progress than your performance. And the truth is, when you commit to improving by 1% every day, you'll outperform the person trying to do everything at once and burning out. You'll build real momentum because consistency compounds far faster than intensity that fizzles out. It's also important to recognize that this 1% improvement isn't limited to your career or finances. It applies to your character, your relationships, your health, and most importantly, your spiritual life. You can get 1% more honest, 1% more forgiving, 1% more patient. Imagine what would happen if you became 1% more disciplined in your prayer life every day, or 1% more generous, or 1% more obedient to God's direction. Over time, that level of commitment doesn't just change your life, it affects everyone connected to you. Improving yourself by 1% each day is also about alignment. It means aligning your decisions with your destiny. You weren't created to be stagnant or mediocre. You were created in God's image, which means you are built for growth, built for impact, and built for multiplication. But multiplication doesn't come without obedience and intentionality. When you commit to this principle, you're not just doing self-development, you're stepping into your divine assignment. You're agreeing with God's word that says you go from glory to glory, not glory to stagnant. There's also a psychological and emotional shift that occurs when you follow this principle. When people set massive goals and fail to meet them, they feel defeated and often quit. But when you aim to improve just 1% today and you hit that target, you gain confidence. That confidence becomes fuel. You start to trust yourself. You build internal credibility. You stop waiting for motivation and start relying on momentum. And with every small win, your belief grows. Belief in God's plan, belief in your purpose, and belief in your ability to walk in it. This is why this message is so freeing. It takes the pressure off of being perfect and puts the focus back on being faithful. That 1% each day is your daily act of obedience. You're not responsible for the harvest, but you are responsible for sowing. You are responsible for the habits. You are responsible for showing up. And if you keep showing up, if you keep sowing, there's no limit to what God can do with your life. You become a magnet for opportunities. You become a leader people trust. You become a person God can use. When you really adopt this mindset, it becomes easier to face resistance and distraction. Why? Because you're no longer chasing motivation, you're fueled by mission. When you know that every day is a chance to grow just 1% closer to the person God called you to be, you won't waste your time with toxic people, fruitless arguments, or useless habits. Your focus becomes razor sharp. You begin to understand that excellence isn't found in occasional inspiration. It's found in daily execution. And that execution, no matter how small, adds up. The key is to start now with what you have. You don't need a new year, a new month, or even a new week. You just need a new decision. Decide to improve 1% today, and then do it again tomorrow. Eventually your habits change, your results change, and your entire life changes. Not because you made one big move, but because you made one small move consistently. Excellence is not a one-time event. It's a deliberate and consistent decision backed by a deep understanding of who you are and where you're going. When you commit to improving by just 1% every single day, you are embracing the process of mastery. Mastery isn't accidental. It doesn't show up when the stars align or when external conditions become perfect. It's forged through daily effort, vision, and the kind of faith that refuses to settle for mediocrity. Myron Golden often says that mastery is not reserved for the elite, it's reserved for the committed. It's for those who understand that greatness is simply the byproduct of small, consistent acts done with purpose. When you improve yourself by 1% each day, you're not merely stacking actions, you're reinforcing an identity. You're making a statement to yourself and to the world. I take responsibility for my growth. That daily decision, no matter how small it seems, becomes a seed. And when you sow seeds of effort, discipline, and faith day after day, those seeds compound into confidence, competence, and character. One of the biggest misconceptions in today's culture is that transformation comes from massive effort all at once. In reality, it comes from sustained focus applied over time. Vision plays a critical role in this process. You won't continue to make those 1% improvements if you don't know where you're going. That's why clarity of vision is vital. Myron Golden teaches that every person is born with purpose, and purpose always demands progress. When you understand your vision, your divine assignment, it becomes much easier to say yes to the right things and no to the wrong ones. Without vision, people perish. But with vision, every small improvement becomes meaningful. Every disciplined action feels connected to something bigger. You stop working just to survive and you start working to become. But vision without action is just imagination. And that's why daily commitment matters. You must make a conscious choice to act every day in alignment with who you want to become. That 1% could be waking up 30 minutes earlier to work on your business. It could be journaling to develop self-awareness. It could be listening to a sermon, studying scripture, or working out to honor your body. It doesn't have to be grand. It just has to be intentional. And when your action is fueled by vision and backed by faith, that's when your life starts to transform in powerful, unstoppable ways. The truth is, mastery is built in the mundane. It's not the spotlight moments that shape you. It's what you do when no one's watching. And if the moment you have wasted, Myron Golden often highlights biblical examples of preparation and process. David didn't become a giant slayer in front of Goliath. He became a giant slayer while tending sheep, practicing with a sling in isolation. The same is true for you. Your 1% improvements today are training you for platforms you can't even see yet. God is watching what you do in private before he trusts you with something in public. Excellence in obscurity is the preparation for influence in visibility. Faith plays a foundational role here. You can't sustain daily discipline without believing that it matters. You must believe that your effort is not wasted, that your seed will produce a harvest. That's why spiritual alignment is crucial. When your 1% growth is connected to your faith in God's plan, you move from grinding to flowing. You're not just working hard, you're working with purpose. And purpose rooted in faith produces endurance. You stop quitting when results don't show up fast enough because you trust the process and the God who designed it. The daily decision to grow 1% also acts as a filter. It helps you eliminate distractions and avoid comparison. You're not competing with other people. You're competing with the person you were yesterday. That mindset frees you from insecurity and self-doubt. You're no longer intimidated by how far others have gone. You're encouraged by how far you can go. This personal accountability builds mental strength, emotional resilience, and spiritual stability. You start to operate from a place of wholeness rather than scarcity, from vision, not from vanity. And let's talk about time. Time is the most democratic resource on the planet. Everyone gets the same 24 hours a day. The difference lies in how you use it. Improving by 1% each day doesn't take hours. It often takes minutes. But the cumulative effect of those minutes applied with intention transforms not just your schedule, but your trajectory. If you spend 15 minutes each day learning something new, that's over 90 hours a year. You could learn a new language, master a skill, or read a dozen books. That's the power of consistent micro investments in your future. Another key benefit of this principle is the restoration of trust in yourself. Many people today have broken trust with themselves. They say they'll change, and then they don't. They start things, but never finish. This erodes confidence over time. But when you commit to 1% growth and follow through, you rebuild that trust. Each time you act on your commitment, you prove to yourself that you are dependable, that your word matters. And the more trustworthy you are to yourself, the more confidently you can move in the world, and the more God can entrust you with bigger things. This process also deepens humility. When you're focused on improving gradually, you recognize that you don't know it all, and that's okay. It puts you in a posture of learning, and learners grow. The person who says, I don't have to change, is the one who stays stuck. But the one who says, I'm going to grow, even if it's just a little every day, is the one who ends up leading others. Growth invites grace. You become more understanding, more empathetic, and more aware, not just of your strengths, but of your weaknesses. And that awareness becomes the foundation for meaningful transformation. So, the question becomes, sometimes you may find yourself reaching the point where you almost feel too good to be true. As you grow by 1% every day, something else happens. You begin to attract different opportunities and people. Why? Because like attracts like. As Myron Golden says, you don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. So as you become more disciplined, more focused, and more excellent, you start drawing relationships, partnerships, and resources that reflect that same standard. You raise your internal thermostat and your external results rise to match it. In the same way you are to you, the same thing applies to your business and your life. You dress in favor. You behave in favor. You talk and behave in favor. You raise your internal thermostat and your external results rise to match it. The world begins to respond to the new version of you that is being built, one small improvement at a time. And finally, this kind of growth inspires others. Your consistency becomes a testimony. You show people what it looks like to lead yourself well, to honor your time, your body, your calling. You become a living example of what's possible, not because you made one big leap, but because you kept showing up. And when others see that, it gives them permission to believe they can do the same. It's not about perfection, it's about progress. It's about demonstrating that greatness isn't born, it's built. And it's built in small, faithful steps, one day, one decision, 1% at a time.